Hey guys, go talk about ARBB. Uh, what's annoying is I just recorded an entire 20-minute video and the mic cut out and I have to redo it. ARBB, pretty interesting play. Long story short, I thought this was going to be really heavy in the pre-market because it kind of did these early morning parabolics, and I consider a lot of these, especially these like pre 7 a.m. parabolics, to be pretty weak. I thought there was going to be a ton of heaviness and it was just going to, essentially um, show weakness into the open and fade, and I got stopped out. But we'll go over the book, the reasons why I take a trade like this. I did a long at the top. I longed 360 up into the fours. I think I made something like 60 cents on it, and then I try to short. I try to short the pop off of support here. Um, in the high 3.9s. And but the problem with this short, I took a little bit off just because I hate my average. I hate my average being like 10, 15, 20% away from high day. I get very scalpy when my average is way too far away from high day, which is why I keep my risk tight. Got stopped out, and then I re-entered on the bid prop after it took out these lower highs, and then that trade ended up working. It's not showing, but I'm actually still holding about 30% of my trade. It's actually into 2.6s right now, but I just um, took the screenshot earlier, so we'll go over the chart, and yeah, so we'll see from the after hour structures. Yeah, a lot of these like big run ups pre 7 a.m. And especially like like kind of especially if these run ups happen at like 4 or 5 a.m. they tend to be super weak. So my whole thesis behind this was like, oh, okay, it does like the crazy parabolic nobody expects because it's like out of nowhere and it does all this choppy, crazy price action, and then they're going to bait longs with these, VWAP 5 minute 9 pushes, right? And then it's going to show weakness into the open and fade, right? So that was kind of my reasoning. Now, I always love to get in after some type of aggressive move. So here we have a walk down and then a big volume. You can see the relative volume come in. Big volume push. I love to wait for the second push, which is what I short. I short a second push in the high 230s. Because I always consider it to be a little retail chase, right? So I saw this and I'm like, oh man, retail's going to chase this, think it's going to be like some insane move upwards like this. It immediately failed, and then all these bounces again. They're all pretending VWAP so strong, and then they pull it. And I thought, okay, this is just going to chop around, and this 206 level is going to get broken. And it didn't do that. Instead, it did this pop right before market open, which, believe it or not, this is usually very bearish. Like, a lot of times when you get like high volume pops right before market open, um, it's very, very bearish because what they're doing is they're just like they're raising the share price by a little bit, and then at market open they abuse the market open volume to dump, right? All these people chase this pop, and I saw this stall and I saw this knife, and I'm like, oh, this is just gonna knife straight to two. But people in my Discord, shout to them, did point out that there is a very painted lower high structure here. Um, and in a strong market, painted lower highs in a pre-market can get attacked. And I did say that was bullish. I'm like, I see what you're saying, but I'm taking a bearish bias because of how it's already squeezed, right? Like the higher and higher you get, the less likely longs are to work. Funny enough, I did do a long right here and it went straight up, but that's just because that's what the book told me to do. So sadly, I just got stopped out on this push and I went long out of this height. So this broke high today. It pulled back and it threw up a bunch of bids, and I longed into those bids, and it squeezed straight up. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about longing at the top. Now, in a strong market, this works extremely well if you have the correct book map. Um, so overall, guys, it is a bad idea on strong stocks to short out of all halts that are squeezing past high a day, right? It's usually not the play. Sometimes you can have a thesis of why it would be, and that's because there's often other bearish factors associated with the stock. Um, This didn't really have any of those factors. Instead, it unhalts and they throw up a bunch of bids. You can see bids. These are bids. Bids. This is the unhalt. Bids, bids, bids. Empty order book to the upside. So this is very bullish. It's actually so bullish. You could have probably big brain long this in the high 2.9s and the low 3s here. I did not do that though. I just kind of wanted to see on really strong stocks, when things are like, this is a new high day, this is a new high day, when stocks are making new high days, I generally like to wait. I like to wait to see what the structure is. I like to wait to see what the bid support looks like. Is it building higher lows? Are there bids? Are there asks? Like, what's happening, right? Um, and I saw those bids right out of the unhalt, so I'm like, all right, I'm already bullish this. I'm already straight up because the market conditions are strong, but also because um, the order book imbalance is so extreme. So I wasn't really even looking to catch a short up here. I was like, I'll just look to see what happens. I see them throwing up little bids. I see them throwing up little bids. I see them. Oh my god! And then like you see like yeah, there's ask up here, but it's kind of like there's no obvious signals here. There's like it's the big bids down here. They're throwing up these little bids, on these pushes, but there's also not a lot of ask. So it's like you have one or two levels and one or two, there's like two bids down here, two ask up here. And it's like and yeah, it's making these aggressive moves. But it's like, what am I going to be risking, right? It's like the book is kind of empty both ways, right? So I was like, well, the stock is really strong. Um, I'll just wait, right? There's plenty of volume in the stock. So I know even if it pulls back 20, 30%, there's probably going to be some backside play. So I don't really have to worry too much. And then it did something really interesting. It did a high day clear out in a big pull. So why does that happen? It happens because on this high day clear out, you can see all the buying coming, right? There's no bids. So they pull it. But does that mean it's bearish? In this case, no, because high day clearouts and strong stocks high day clearout is a bad pattern of strong stocks. It's a bad pattern. If something's trading crazy, consistent, high volume, most of the time a high day clearout is not. There's always exceptions. There's always different reads you can make, but overall, it's bad. It's a bad setup. Especially strong stocks, strong market. High day clearout is not a good setup, right? So, and the reason it's not good is because you get this big push and you see there's like 4 layers of ass that get taken out. So when this stock knifes, all those ass are gone. There's nothing on the book here. So there's like the book is empty. So all these shorts and all of retail think this 10% knife is really weak because it's like, oh, high day clear out. Look at it dump. Oh my god. And then in reality, these guys just come in with 8 layers of bids, no orders to the upside, and I longed right here. I longed here in this consolidation. That's where I was longing, because I was like, well, look at the book. This is long. This is the long at the top strat, right? But problem is with the long at the top is when you get these short squeezes. A lot of times these short squeezes don't have bids following it up, so you kind of have to sell into strength, right? You never quite know how high, especially once it starts squeezing 20%. I longed at 3.6. Once you start getting to the 4s and 4.2s and 4.4s, like, you're kind of betting on bids showing up. Now, bids did show up here, right? This was empty on the push, but then bids showed up and there was a second push. But then on that second push, there's also no bids, which is why I just decided to get out because you just never know. Um, you just never know what uh, when if something squeezes 15% and there's zero bids under it, you just don't know when the 15% knife is going to come. So you kind of protect your profits as a long, especially if you're longing. I'm longing up here at 3.6. It's not like I have this amazing average to support myself here. Um, I'm just longing at what's more or less the beginning of the short squeeze, right? Of all the people who tried shorting out of the uphaul, right? So I did think this second push, which, okay, now we're at high day. So now we're here, right? Big squeeze, pullback, second push. I wanted to wait longer on this. On the backside, I do like attacking second pushes like this almost right away. For example, this candle. So we had a big push, a mini 1 minute pullback, and a second push. I shorted this candle. So um, this was that short that I ended up stopping out on. But when it's at the top, when something's trading this much volume and it's this big, um, I generally assume that there's so much liquidity in the stock that any pullback, even if the pullback's 20, 25, 30%, will find support and do some type of other move that I can evaluate and get in on, right? So here's your kind of walk down. Again, these walk downs from high day like this are really, really strong. Now that doesn't mean I think it's going to go to high day. The higher something pushes, right? The more likely, you know, these this walk down will do some type of move, but it won't break high day, right? It'll swipe lower highs, it'll look really strong, and then they pull it, right? That's pretty normal. So I saw this walk down. I'm like, oh man, they're definitely walking it down, and they're walking it into this consolidation over here. So I'm like, all right, I'll just wait. I saw this overly aggressive move. I got in on the second candle, and then I took a little off, and then I got stopped out because what I'm looking at, if I'm short like 390s and high days 454, I'm looking at all these lower highs, man. There's all these lower. It's the same idea where it's like, well, if I get stopped out, and I told my Discord this, I'll probably just stop myself out above 4, and then I'll wait, for this 420 level to get broken because that's much 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 closer to high day, right? So I waited all the way until I saw this push, and then I know some people in my chat, I think, just they see a big aggressive push and they want to short it right away. And most of the time, um, you don't need to short the moment a key level gets broken. Um, a key lower high level gets broken. Usually, the only time you have to like instantly take a short here is if they did some crazy manipulated move where say like they grinded it up, they pulled it to VWAP, they squeezed it to 4.2, and then pulled it. Like low floaty minute type things where it's like, um, where they do these highly volatile, 10% dump followed by 20% squeeze followed by another 10% dump. Like, when the volatility is that insane and that crazy, you do need to act very fast. But if something's very grindy and high volume, you can usually wait. I learned it's better to wait, and so when I saw 420 get broken, I wanted to see, the pullback and then another push, right? It's like, okay, well, how's the second push going to look? Um, and I actually shorted it. Funny enough, I actually initially shorted it into the second push here. Here's the second push, and I saw this ask, and I saw this ask, and I was like, all right, let me just get into 430s, have a good average, right? And then they pulled the ask, and I was like, oh my god, they're going to squeeze us straight up, and I saw the buying come in, but I was like, I'll just keep an eye on 450s, see how 450 reacts. And then they ended up just pushing it by a few cents to this guy, and then they pulled it, and the buying volume disappeared, and I was like, oh, that's very bearish. I was like, that should have went. Um, and I see the bid prop. I see, you can see the bids here. They're throwing up these bids. They throw up these bids, pull them, throw up these bids. They're pulling these bids that are supporting it. Um, and uh, and yeah, luckily they came in with a new ask right here. They pulled this bid and they dumped it, right? So this ended up working out extremely well. Um, and yeah, the only other interesting thing was they threw up 150,000 shares at 3.55. That bid was holding for an hour, and then right here they pulled it. So there was 150,000 shares on the bid, and then they pulled the bid, and 3 seconds later they dumped it, and that was really the beginning of the end. So that is ARBB. I will say, guys, this is one of my favorite. This is what happened on SMFL. I love it when you get, you know, um, so you get up only, so big up only move. You get a pullback with a bunch of lower highs, and I like to see those lower highs get broken because this is a very, this area once, this lower high and this lower high and almost this one, but now we're getting, um, it was really after 420 got broken that I started to make reads about um, what I thought could be a really high reward short because once it breaks all, like, pretty much every single lower high, it's a do or die situation, right? Either this squeezes high a day or it's the top of the long trap, right? Which is why the reward here is so big, right? If we go back to SFML, it was the same thing, right? Right over here. This is where every single, lower high gets broken, and stock has clearly already made multiple huge moves, like here and here, right? So the odds of this continuing um, become very low, right? And the short I made here was the same idea, where it's like I knew 320 was a level. So once 320 got broken, I wait for the pullback and then I try to short the next push, right? Same concept as my short today in ARBB, right? So what do you call it? But yeah, these are on really strong stocks. These are amazing top potential topping patterns on these low floats that have already made multiple short squeezes, right? When moves like this fail, right, at the top like this, these always have massive fade potential, always, right? Always see here, always. These can really give you some of the highest conviction in your fades. So just wanted to point that out. And yeah, the good old long at the top strat. It has a very specific book map, and it only happens on the strongest plays. So it's not something I would just, um, you know, do on a daily basis or even the market's going to get weaker, and these types of longs at the top aren't going to work anymore. So, it's a market dependent type of book map play that happens in strong markets. So, anyways, hope that was interesting, guys. Merry Christmas. Information down below about the Discord, and have a good one. See ya.